During the pentagram rite, it was as if there was a dragging or skipping of the tracing, but the movement was smooth. It was as if, with the first set of vibrations, that there were white stalactites and stalagmites that appeared in the mirror. Then it was as if yellow triangular things flew in to the cave world of the mirror. Then something happened in the mirror, and these 9-sided yellow pyramids formed a circle of 13. And then they broke up into pulsing, twisting yellow particles that filled the shadows, which during the ritual were around things that, now that the ritual's over, one doesn't quite see that. And more so in places that there were shadows. And there was a white that flowed out beyond the shadows, filling the room with a sort of soft, chalky sort of color, texture combination. During the final reading, I felt particularly heavy inside. And I felt a contentness and stillness of body. During the final scrying, I felt the shudder of euphoria pour down me, and in that moment, I saw things in a different sense. Some of the shapes were even different, but certainly the colors were different. A person could say that a perfected sense of this scrying mirror before you was of what I saw. Chapter 27 reminds us of the common New Age sense of high magic and low magic, of course referencing the sex magic aspect, which high magic and low magic isn't quite the same as what position you use and all that other stuff. In the East, and in more revelation-based systems, this would be defined in terms of, on one hand, you got devotion, and on the other hand, you're trying for some sort of mental or physical power. Now, if you direct all that towards deity and you make that an aspect of your worship, or then that's high magic to begin with. So there's no high magic or low magic if it's magic as the art and science of religion. But if it's the alternation of your consciousness, that's a bit different. And see, we do have them killing monsters, getting their crystals, and are finding the correlation between the monster and the path that you're supposed to be on, or, that sort of thing. And I wouldn't say that the crystals mentioned in the story as the ones of the chakras and all that is exactly a model for ritual practice, but it gives ideas of, okay, this system takes you to the top. This system only goes, so far. Chapter 28 reminds us that maybe it's not such a good idea to just go out and combat evil or combat the other spiritual side, or whatever you want to call it. Not just because of the danger it presents, but, how it might change who you are. Kind of like Beowulf and, becoming, you become a bit of the monster to kill the monster. Chapter 29 starts to give you implications that remind you of one of those Antichrist movies, right? That a vessel is chosen, and that vessel is going to incarnate the lead of the demonic side, or that sort of thing. And that's how you feel like them is like she who's going to incarnate the mother Drell and all that. That's how it makes you feel, right? I would agree that there can be a unification or directing towards oneness in terms of spiritual orders, but perhaps it should be who revives the tradition or who receives the revelation, rather than your typical political climb, or maybe, feats of bravery and learning and all that stuff are certainly important, but having it be the definitive authority in that sense could cause issues, particularly when it's generational, or, that it happens generation after generation after generation of people that are in part of this thing. It's like they're not necessarily going to have the spiritual insight to choose the best leaders spiritually. Chapter 30 kind of concludes things, and we're led to kind of think of some stuff that actually does go on. Freemasons, what would happen with, and other secret societies, what would happen if you had such censorship that the information was controlled by an electronic system that was hooked to your brain, or other sorts of stuff that they're talking about. Is like, well, there wouldn't even be the access to some stuff. And what if something happens? What if there was some disaster, and then some advanced society emerges from the ruins, and they, from those ruins, end up, well, redirecting society. Oh, I found this lost thing. And surely a lot of that has actually happened in society, is that the religious orders have sort of replaced, each other. And so we have a figure that it turns out that he did that. He directed society by presenting a false tradition. And it makes you wonder about all those rewrites of the Bible and the Vedic texts, and there were authentic revivals of the Zoroastrians and the Jews and some other people, but, it makes you wonder, was some of this directed on purpose? The authors afterward gives you some indications of what was thought to be original, what was thought to be, ideas that were reworked from other stories. And I do agree that it was better to put this after the main story than before it. Same thing with the, other appendixes. Although I would have put the myth of Muria before the authors afterward. And then I would have put the glossary, and then I would have put Lynn Carter's advice on inventing fantasy worlds. Now, if things sound similar, I I understand there being possible confusion, but I think using different suffixes and stuff like that and putting certain rules and, okay, this is going to go low, this is going to go high in the sound, and that sort of thing. I think this can be made to appear more organic. But I do agree with the different names that drive the effect more home, sort of thing. Now, in previous workings with this book here, there's been 3 flashes each night upon leaving the temple in the east. And I'm not sure if that's going to be the case tonight, but I'm definitely going to try to share, well, at least in the description.